What I need you to do is put the knife down for me.
Across the country, cameras are capturing criminals in the act.
Oh, please! Help me now!
From those on the attack to those under the influence.
Sir, I need assistance.
From those on the run.
You're under arrest for suspicion of fraud.
To those picking a fight. Cameras see it all.
I'm Nick Wallace, and I've been reporting on crime for more than a decade. In this show, I'll be revealing how cameras help put criminals behind bars and keep Britain safe.
Whether you're an international drug smuggler...
It was carrying £500 million of drugs.
Armed robber...
They did not know whether they were going to live or die.
Or simply making a run for it, it's hard to hide from justice...
The dog will not bite you if you comply with my instructions.
...if you're caught on camera. Welcome to Caught on Camera. This time, the reckless criminals who brought untold pain into the lives of their victims, but paid the price thanks to CCTV. We've got the cash machine thief who went on the run after crashing a stolen car and killing a driver.
They didn't make a call to the ambulance. They looked after themselves. They ran away from the scene.
The axe-wielding criminal filmed whilst on a terrifying robbery spree.
Do it now! Do it now!
And the racist abusers caught in the act.
What are you doing about it? I'm going to blow something up, are you?
Also coming up, the UK's most dangerous drivers, captured on dashcam. But first to Leeds, where police are pursuing a driver who's refused to stop.
Yeah, it's failing to stop, on to interrupt, we're all lane.
Unconcerned by the danger he's posing, he drives at speed down the wrong side of the road. During the chase, he races through a set of lights, coming close to taking out two pedestrians. At one point, he accelerates to a shocking 80 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. In a desperate attempt to escape, he crosses the grass verge of a dual carriageway and then performs this reckless roundabout manoeuvre. Knowing the game's up, the driver and his passenger abandon the car as it's still moving and flee into a housing estate.
Go on, mate, get him.
But they're soon caught by officers. The driver got 14 months prison time for a host of offences, including driving without insurance and dangerous driving.
Next, the robber who terrified shop staff with an axe and a meat cleaver. The dad of one raided 4 stores, and CCTV would prove vital in linking him to the crimes.
September 2017 in Cirencester, Gloucestershire. It's 6 p.m, and a shop worker at Chesterton Stores is counting his takings when a customer approaches the counter. A minute later, a masked robber bursts in, wielding an axe. He pushes the shopper aside and threatens the shop worker with violence unless he empties the till immediately.
It was clear that the shop didn't do exactly what he asked. They would have presumed he'd have hurt them with the axe.
The robber then makes his move, heading off with the till containing around £1,000 in cash.
It must have been extremely frightening for the member of the public that was in the shop and also, the shop worker behind the counter. No one expects in a town like Cirencester to have this presented before them.
2 days later, another armed robbery, 10 miles away. No CCTV this time, but eyewitness reports suggested it might be the same offender. He was seen escaping in a red car.
What was distinct with these 2 offences is that the offender was making an attempt to disguise their identity using a white dust mask. At that point, we started thinking that there may be some links between the 2 offences.
24 hours on, a third robbery. A man wearing a hooded top and the same style of mask enters a Cirencester convenience store with a hatchet.
Mate, I want you to put all the money in there right now. Do it now! Do it now!
The frightened assistant does as he's told. But the robber then helps himself to even more. To watching police officers, this looked like a serial criminal.
We were very concerned that this offending may continue. It's clearly the signs of somebody who is desperate, trying to get relatively small amounts of money on a regular basis with such serious threats using weapons. So it was absolutely a priority to locate and arrest this person.
Fortunately, detectives were about to get a break. When news of the third robbery circulated locally, they were given a name. A building worker in his 30s who was known to have a drug problem.
We were aware he lived in the local area. We were aware of his domestic issues and drug issues. We were aware that he had access and used a red vehicle. All parts of the puzzle were coming together at this point and certainly gave us enough suspicion to bring him in and ask questions and ask him for account for his whereabouts at the times of the offences.
But the man denied any involvement. And as officers were still waiting for forensics connecting him to the crime scenes, they had to let him go.
We immediately saw the risk of releasing him to the public again. We were concerned that he may continue reoffending, and we were concerned that his behaviour may escalate, his violence may become worse.
12 hours later, those fears were realised. In this robbery, the offender threatened the terrified assistant with a meat cleaver. But the police reaction was swift. Officers arrested him just 10 minutes afterwards. And now the evidence against him was stacking up.
When the offender was arrested, he was detained, obviously wearing clothes that the officer believed were almost identical to what he'd previously just seen on the CCTV at the shop. There was also money, cash in various denominations found on his persons as well, which we believe had been stolen from the fourth premises.
And there was more damning evidence. The robber had been spotted on CCTV wearing a satchel. It was later found abandoned close to where the man was arrested.
That bag contained face coverings, it contained the meat cleaver, and it also contained cash that was stolen from the shop. That gave us something to work with because we could check all of those things then for his DNA or fingerprints.
As officers waited for the results of those checks, they studied footage of the crimes again. The connections between all of them were clear.
Having linked him to crime scene 4, we were able to then look back over the CCTV of the previous offences where we had it, and the acts are so similar. It's obvious to a reasonable person that it's more than likely to be the same person committing all those offences.
Forensics provided the clincher. The man's DNA was found at the scene of the second and fourth robberies. He later pleaded guilty to robbery and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. In his defence, he said he needed the money to pay off a large drugs debt. Police recovered £187, and it was later distributed amongst the 4 stores. Coming up, a fatal crash, a driver on the run, and a cash machine heist. How CCTV helped solve the case.
We were quite fortunate that the scene of the ram raid, the scene was actually covered by quite a number of cameras.
The hate crimes caught on camera. And how dash cams are recording reckless driving as it happens. When the police found 2 cars crashed with one driver fatally injured and the other driver missing, they had no idea what had happened. It was a case that would take CCTV and sophisticated detective work to solve and would soon reveal this was much more than a simple car accident. August 2017 in the town of Whittlesea, Cambridgeshire. It's the early hours, and emergency services are about to get a call about a serious road accident. When they arrive, they find a scene of devastation. A black Audi S3 and a green Nissan Primera, both wrecked and lying off the road.
So this is the collision scene itself. It's a single carriageway road. There's an awful lot of bumps and undulations. The collision occurred just in the foreground here where the change of road surface is. The Nissan was travelling in the direction we see of these approaching cars, so it was travelling north, and the Audi was travelling from the opposite direction.
The driver of the Nissan, a husband and father of two, sustained multiple chest injuries and was trapped within the car. He died at the scene. But there was no trace of the Audi driver.
Well, that in itself is going to raise great suspicions. It's always going to raise the question as to why have they fled. Now, sometimes it can be just simply that, panic, but more often than not, there is a reason behind it.
The police had no idea what the reason was. But it was clear their absent driver cared little for anyone else.
It would appear they made no effort to see if they could offer any assistance. They didn't make a call to the ambulance to get him help. Effectively, they looked after themselves. They ran away from the scene.
Finding the identity of the missing driver would be difficult. Tracker dogs failed to find any leads. And although local residents had heard the crash, none had seen anything. Officers had only one obvious lead: the car itself.
So the officers examined the vehicle in a little bit more detail, and one of the things they noticed, they realised that the vehicle was displaying false registration plates. Well, that, of course, gives rise to great suspicion as to what exactly the vehicle's been doing, or what the most likelihood that it is a stolen motor vehicle.
To find out if the car had been involved in any criminal activity, detectives began a sweep of CCTV. In the nearby town of Crowland, there'd been reports of a cash machine theft at a supermarket.
We were quite fortunate that the scene of the ram raid, the scene was actually covered by quite a number of cameras. It was covered by the local council CCTV, but also the actual store had a number of cameras, both inside and outside, that gave different views.
Sure enough, one of the cameras picked up the black Audi. But would the footage show who the driver was? Initially, 3 men can be seen focusing on another vehicle, a flatbed truck. They manoeuvre it in front of the store, which is protected by glass doors and heavy metal shutters. They try to smash their way in. But although the glass is shattered, the shutters stay in place. The gang need them out of the way so they can pull out the cash machine. So they strike again.
That has the result of bringing the security shutters down. The passenger then entered the shop with a strop, placed it over the cash machine, attached it to the rear of the towing vehicle, the Toyota, and then, of course, they pulled the machine out into the road.
The robbers then attempt to lift the cash machine into the black Audi, but struggle with its weight. They soon give up and decide to make their getaway. 10 minutes later, that same Audi would be involved in a crash that would leave a man dead.
We could see the registration plate on it, we could see the vehicle, and there was absolutely no doubt that this vehicle was the same vehicle that was involved in the collision a little later.
But the footage left 2 major questions unanswered. Who was the driver? And who were his passengers?
Whilst we could see their general build and we get an idea of what clothing they're wearing, clearly they'd taken measures to hide their identity, wearing balaclavas and gloves and such like, so you couldn't actually identify them per se from the footage itself.
Later in the programme, CCTV leads police to a possible suspect.
Morning, sir. Not bad, how are you?
But will investigators be able to prove what really happened at the crash scene?
The sale of car dashboard cameras, otherwise known as dash cams, has risen dramatically in the last few years. Not only are they bringing insurance premiums down, they're also helping the public and the police hold the country's worst drivers to account.
May the 10th, 2018. A dashcam captures a white van drifting across a motorway. When this happens. The driver later told witnesses he'd fallen asleep at the wheel, and the footage showed that no one else had caused the accident. For the police, it was one more case in which a dashboard camera provided crucial evidence.
When I'm investigating serious or fatal collisions, whilst physical witnesses are vitally important in an investigation, they will struggle to provide the level of detail in a 3 or 4 second incident when something's gone wrong that a dash cam can provide very clearly. If you like, that's our digital witness.
A digital witness to dangerous driving, as well as collisions. January 2018, and a 24-year-old man causes motorway chaos, undertaking on the M1. Dashcam footage from a nearby car records him repeating the manoeuvre 7 times. But with his actions caught on camera, police were able to prosecute. The driver got a £1,500 fine and a 2-year driving ban. The increasing use of dashcams has the support of motoring organisations like the RAC.
Do you think dashcams can make driving and therefore the roads a safer place?
Yes, we do. We certainly think that if you purchase a dashcam, we think it can help improve the standards of the owner of the dashcam, but also there is a message out there that people are almost being watched and bad driving practices being exposed.
Dashcam prices range from as little as £20 to more than £300. And they offer an array of different features.
So as these dashcams get more expensive, what kind of features do they have rolled into them?
Some will have a GPS feature, which will be able to track a location and a speed of where an incident has happened. Some will also have something called a G-sensor, which means that it will automatically record and keep on your memory card any incident that might happen.
What evidential value does dashcam footage actually have?
They can be really, really useful for many things, whether it's road safety, even road rage incidents that might be happening on the road.
Incidents like this one. The driver of this Suzuki has dashcams fitted front and rear. He's being pursued by a BMW driver on a road rage mission, who's been aggressively overtaking several other cars and is now tailgating the Suzuki. The BMW driver suddenly overtakes and slams on his brakes. But the incident doesn't end there. The BMW driver prepares to get out of his vehicle. Fearing an assault, the Suzuki driver flees off-road over a field before rejoining the road. But it's still not over. The BMW driver is back. He overtakes and stops again, causing the dashcam driver to brake hard and skid. He mounts the grass verge in a desperate bid to escape, but the BMW crashes into him. Luckily, the Suzuki driver was unharmed and was able to flag down other road users to come to his aid. The driver of the BMW received an 18-week suspended prison sentence and a driving ban.
With the increase in dashcams in vehicles, we are looking to use them for prosecutions as well as witness evidence. In my own personal opinion, I think that dashcams should be fitted to every vehicle. Not only would it potentially improve general driver behaviour on the road, it also will protect people.
Hate crime is on the increase, but whether it's racist abuse or serious assault driven by homophobia, many of the offences are being caught on camera and the perpetrators are being brought to justice.
Your sword are not welcome. Whoever you are.
Worcester Town Centre.
Whoever you are.
A man's captured on camera phone challenging a group of Muslim men in the street.
You are embarrassing yourself. So I suggest you walk away. No, I'm not going to walk away from anywhere. This is my country. I can stay where I am.
My country, not my country.
His incendiary language soon begins to escalate.
You make me feel terrible about it.
Whether you like it or not,
what are you going to do about it? You're going to play something up, are you?
You'll be the first person.
Really? Yes.
The man's tirade lasted 7 minutes and was unprovoked. he received a community order for his religiously aggravated actions and was ordered to pay compensation to his victims. Neil Monk from Victim Support says his charity receives over 5,000 complaints about distressing behaviour like this each year.
We know that hate crime can be more emotionally affecting than other sorts of crimes that aren't motivated by hostility or prejudice. And I think the reason for that is that they're types of behaviour that target someone because of something fundamental to their identity, something that they can't or shouldn't have to change.
As in this crime. 3 sisters on a train to Redditch are being subjected to racist remarks from a man with a dog.
Wanna get racist? Wanna get racist? The whole train can see how racist you're being to us.
Camera footage can be really, really useful. It can capture, for example, racially abusive language, but also, of course, it can identify a perpetrator, and capturing that image, making the technology a witness to the crime, can really help identify perpetrators and get them brought to justice.
The man responsible for this abuse was brought to justice. The man was jailed for 20 weeks for racially aggravated assault and other offences. The court heard he'd left the sisters terrified after telling his dog to bite them. But cameras don't just capture verbal attacks. Nottingham, June 2017. It's the early hours, and a man's caught on CCTV smearing sausage meat on the locks at a mosque. With pork prohibited in Islamic faith, this was clearly a religiously motivated act.
The fact that sausage meat was rubbed onto the exterior of the building shows very clearly that this offender knew what they were doing, and they were targeting their behaviour very explicitly at the fact this was a mosque and a place of worship.
5 minutes later, the man, along with a friend, drapes an England flag over a flower pot and then urinates, not once, but twice. The CCTV footage proved vital. The man, along with his friend, were fined for religiously aggravated vandalism.
There is a greater confidence in society for reporting hate crime. That sort of behaviour, especially when it's not challenged, can really affect relationships between communities, which is so important to stopping this sort of behaviour happening and making Britain a safe and pleasant place to be.
Coming up, after a cash machine heist and fatal car accident, the police close in on the man they believe is responsible.
Morning, sir.
Clothes looked soiled and muddy, trousers were torn, which of course is exactly the sort of person we'd be looking for.
And armed and dangerous in a seaside resort.
We're in the middle of a major police investigation. A man has gone on the run after taking part in a cash machine heist and crashing his car, killing another driver. But the police are closing in, and CCTV will prove vital when it comes to making an arrest.
Surveillance cameras had shown this Audi being used during the cash machine theft just minutes before it was involved in the fatal accident. Detectives suspected the man behind the wheel had been driving dangerously, a charge that would bring serious jail time. He'd fled the scene, but a few hours after the collision, CCTV picked up this man just 10 miles from the crash scene. And his appearance was enough to make the police sit up.
It's around 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were seen in the centre of Whittlesea without shoes. Their clothes looked soiled and muddy, their trousers were torn, and to put it simply, they looked like they'd been crossing fields and ditches, which of course is exactly the sort of person we'd be looking for at that time in the morning.
Officers moved in to question him.
Morning, sir. Not bad, how are you?
Just waiting for a taxi to get down for you.
Just waiting for a taxi.
As he approached this individual, he switched on his body-worn camera, which is excellent because it allows us to capture the very first interaction with this person.
We've had some calls and just concern because obviously you haven't got any shoes. What's your name, pal?
It's Dale Smith.
Checks were made of him and revealed he had some history of a similar sort of criminality. But to be absolutely frank, it was his proximity, where he is, his poor explanation, the condition in which he's found, clearly was going to raise suspicion that he'd come from this vehicle.
The police didn't yet have proof linking Smith to the accident, but his behaviour was enough for them to arrest him on suspicion of dangerous driving.
When questioned, something which later on in court, anything you do say may be given in evidence.
But if the police hoped they'd get a confession, they were wrong.
When the suspect was arrested on the day of the collision, he was obviously interviewed at that time, and he answered no comment to all questions. He did not offer any explanation.
Reluctantly, the police had to release Smith. They wouldn't be able to arrest him again until they had solid evidence linking him to the crash or the robbery. So they set out to get it. They focused first on establishing exactly how the crash happened, recreating the scene with a 3D laser scanner.
This is the view in the direction the Audi had been travelling. And if we move back a little bit from the scene, we can see a very distinctive tyre mark here, together with some associated gouge marks. And what we were able to determine from looking at the scene here is that this is the area of the point of collision. Given the Audi travelling in the direction of the camera here, and the Nissan coming in the opposite direction, what we were able to determine, of course, is the Audi had to have been on the wrong side of the road at the point of collision.
But travelling on the wrong side of the road isn't necessarily proof of dangerous driving.
One possibility is it may be an overtaking, but in this instance we know there was no other vehicle involved. Another explanation is it could be that the Audi swerved for some reason, maybe to avoid an object or an animal or something of that nature.
Next, the investigation team further analysed the tyre marks on the road. These showed the Nissan had been pushed backwards during the crash, a strong indicator that the Audi was driving faster when the two cars collided. But was it travelling at an illegal speed? Officers looked for nearby CCTV that might have filmed the Audi as it passed, and they struck gold. This camera, belonging to a transport firm, captured it just seconds before the crash.
That potentially was good news for us. When I came to actually look at the footage, I've got to say my heart sunk a little bit, because all you see is a brief glimpse of some headlights passing the view.
But by analysing the footage frame by frame and measuring how long it took the car to pass objects, the team were able to establish the car was going at a staggering 84 miles an hour.
To be blunt, I was gobsmacked. We knew the Audi had been travelling quickly, but to find that it was travelling at such high speed, 84 miles per hour, particularly on a road of that nature, I have to say I was extremely surprised.
The police were now confident there was enough evidence to prosecute the Audi driver. But could they prove it was Smith? By now, forensics had come back with DNA pulled from the driver's airbag. It matched Smith's. But that on its own wasn't enough.
It shows that that person was in the vehicle at or after the collision. It is still, however, possible he could explain that by saying that he climbed out of the vehicle and came into contact with that airbag. So we still needed further evidence to be absolutely certain he was the driver.
To find that evidence, officers went back to CCTV of the robbery.
This, for me, was a really crucial piece of footage, because what we see here is the driver of the Toyota, and he is quite distinctive because he's quite large in build and he carries quite a bit of weight around his waist.
The man's large build matched that of the police's prime suspect.
Crucially, from the point of view of this investigation, there comes a point where the three suspects abandon their efforts and they climb into the Audi with a view to escaping the scene. The driver of the Audi at that time is the larger framed person, which I believe at this stage would be Dale Smith. Importantly, this is 10 or so minutes before the collision, so it's every likelihood that the driver at this stage, as it left the scene, would have been the driver at the time of the collision.
This CCTV evidence, coupled with the DNA results, meant detectives were confident enough to re-arrest Smith and question him again. Their analysis of the scene proved he was driving dangerously. They were now sure they could prove his actions had left a man dead.
It was quite evident in the second interview that the evidence was really overwhelming. His demeanour within the interview, it was pretty apparent to him. You could see all the evidence was dawning on him.
The other men involved in the burglary were never caught, but Dale Smith was charged with an array of offences, including burglary and causing death by dangerous driving. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison.
From a policing perspective, I was satisfied with the sentencing. Nevertheless, we have to also acknowledge that no sentence is really going to compensate for, in these circumstances, the loss of life and clearly the loss that is felt by the family and friends.
CCTV control room teams play a vital role in keeping Britain safe and monitoring criminals, from shoplifters to armed offenders. In Lowestoft, they get their share of both. But thanks to camera operators, police are soon on the scene, ready to make arrests.
The Suffolk resort is one of the most popular on England's coast, so keeping it safe for residents and visitors is a top priority. It has 62 CCTV cameras, monitoring everything 24/7, and control room operators ready to call in the police at a moment's notice. A local store has alerted the team to 2 potential shoplifters. Sarah, a veteran operator of 20 years, is on the case.
From the description we were given from security in the store, we've picked up on these 2 coming towards the town centre.
The men dressed in jeans and black jackets are suspected of stealing alcohol.
As you can see, a bottle's been handed from one male to the other, and the first male walks away.
But unknown to them both, they're under surveillance. And their details are being passed on.
We will have told the police where he is, what he looks like. We're able to confirm just this is the male that we've just seen put a bottle down his trousers.
Police are quickly on the scene and arrest the man now carrying the bottle.
The officer then goes to remove the bottle from down the front of the gentleman's trousers. And he's detained.
His friend has tried to escape, but CCTV captures him entering a nearby hostel. Police move in and make an arrest. Later, the man caught with the bottle was charged with theft and fined. Some of those filmed on CCTV are familiar faces. Like this man who was seen behaving aggressively in the town.
They've put up a gentleman who is a well-known local in Lowestoft. He's a homeless gentleman and a local street drinker. He's been threatening staff in the town centre and town security.
The man seems intent on picking a fight with a security guard, who decides on restraining action before the police arrive.
As soon as I get out, I put my handcuffs straight on the offender, keeping him safe and keeping the members of the public safe. While I'm trying to do that, he is threatening to harm me and others and trying to spit at myself and the town security.
Further precautions are called for. Officers put a hood made of breathable mesh on the man to prevent any further spitting. A third of police forces now use them.
Unless somebody has ever been spat at or had it go in their mouth, in their eye or anything like that, then it's not pleasant. I'll tell you from personal experience.
The man was later arrested and charged with being drunk and disorderly. The cameras operate around the clock, leaving nighttime offenders with nowhere to hide. New Year's Eve 2017, and a man seen harassing a group of people.
There's a female there who appears to be telling him to go away. The male does go away, but in doing so pulls a knife out of his pocket. It looks to me like either a carving knife or something similar to that, enough to do some damage to someone if he was to use it on them.
The knife man quickly leaves the area shortly afterwards. But as a result of the images caught on film, police are on their way to the scene within minutes. They arrest and charge the man with possession of an offensive weapon. He later received a 15-week prison sentence. Coming up, the armed criminals who terrified pub staff. The petrol station robber struggling to make a quick getaway. And dig yourself out of that one. The green-fingered thief caught red-handed.
Unclips the one, then unclips the other, and then runs back up the drive, leaving the trail of petals.
Nottingham, August 2017, and 3 balaclavaed men storm a pub's office, forcing in 2 of the staff. One of the gang is armed with a knife and forces a staff member onto his knees. Another attempts to access the safe in the corner of the room. It was one of 3 robberies committed by the gang that summer, but on this night, all were caught, thanks to a police helicopter and a sniffer dog. The men each got 15 years in prison.
For many people, camera technology is now a must-have in the home, helping keep themselves and their communities safe. And whether it's flower pot thieves or little-outs, CCTV can play a vital role in stamping out unwanted behaviour.
Retired bus driver John Levar has lived in a close-knit community in Blackburn for over 20 years. But recently that community's had a big problem. Little-outs.
It's the people that come into the street disrespect our neighbourhood and they're destroying it. We had that much rubbish in the street, cardboard boxes and paper bags and newspaper wrappings and chip shops, they wrap them all up, don't they?
One day, this green, you couldn't put a pen between the litter. We had that much litter. It was unbelievable.
The big clean-up.
The whole community decided to band together to litter pick to rid Blackburn of this blight on the landscape.
All the neighbours came out. We all got stuck into the rubbish that was all round here. The main rubbish was on the back side of us, and we got 42 bags of rubbish.
But the littering continued, and the neighbours were at their wits' end.
And I talked with all the neighbours, got them together, and I said, we keep cleaning up, and we keep shoveling it away, and the people keep dumping it, no more.
So, in a bid to capture the culprits red-handed, the residents turned to technology. Clubbing together, they bought high-tech security cameras to patrol up and down the street. And those cameras soon did their job. They captured this passenger using the road as his rubbish bin.
Isn't he generous sharing his litter with us? Now, if you get 4 or 5 of these people doing this street's full of it.
The cameras also caught this backseat passenger. Not content with what someone's left in the car, he dumps it.
Well, it does make me very annoyed. I see red a little bit because I wouldn't go into somebody's backyard, so to speak, and litter their place. So why come to my place and litter?
This offender is seen cleaning out his Jag, offloading 2 pieces of rubbish from the boot and more from the back seat. John's passed footage like this to the council, which can issue fines of up to £75 for littering and up to £50,000 for more serious fly tipping. And, happily, the war on the little-outs has worked. Within a matter of months, the junk-ridden streets have become litter-free.
And it's lovely to go out there because, like, you're not seeing all this sea full of rubbish, are you? You're seeing a nice street that's clean. And that's what we want.
While some residents act in unison to combat criminals, others go it alone. David Bellamy lives in a quiet cul-de-sac in Shropshire. But crime knows no boundaries. which is why he invested in his own CCTV system in 2012.
The two cameras on the front of the house, one pointing down towards the front door, and we've got the other one that points up the drive to cover the vehicles.
The cameras proved vital when a thief targeted 2 hanging baskets filled with fuchsias.
I was told that hanging baskets are gone and I was at work at the time, so I logged in on my phone into the security system and then was basically flicking through until hanging baskets there, and then gone.
The footage clearly identified the thief, along with another man hovering in the background.
Well, the camera on the garage picks him up approaching the drive, and he comes up to the hanging baskets, unclips the one, then unclips the other, and then runs back up the drive, leaving the trail of petals going into the woodland. It's quite hilarious, you know, his boldness of coming up to the house and then just stealing them, and stealing something that's totally worthless, really.
David reported the theft to the police, but also turned detective himself.
I put my footage on Facebook to see if anybody could identify him, and I didn't realise I'd have such a massive response. First few hours sort of thing, it gone up to like 100,000, then looking at the next day was like 300,000, and kept on escalating up and up and up until it got to about 1 million views.
David even uploaded close-up shots of the thief showing him coming down the path and at the front door. Posting the CCTV did the trick. The man was recognised as a prolific burglar of garden goods. He was arrested and received a 12-week prison sentence.
Before we go, the reckless robber outwitted by petrol station staff and a locked door.
This is the moment that a robber found himself doing time, not in a cell, but inside the petrol station he'd just robbed. Wielding a screwdriver, he targeted this station on the M2 near Rainham, Kent, in January 2018. As he helped himself to cash and cigarettes, the staff managed to escape and had the foresight to lock him in. Despite ramming the glass door with a fire extinguisher and smashing it with his feet, the robber found himself trapped. Eventually, he creates a small gap to squeeze through. But outside, he was greeted by an angry crowd who helpfully detained him until police arrived. The man was convicted of robbery and criminal damage and got 3 years in jail.
That's all from us. Join me next time for more Caught on Camera.
From dangerous pursuits to busting drug dealers, we're hitting the road for an action-packed night with the traffic cops here on Channel 5. Catch the new series Monday at 8.